Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. Please like, subscribe, give me a follow on all the social media platforms. Leave that donation for that fried rice and chicken wings. Listen, man, does Terence Crawford deserve $100 million for his next fight or just to fight Canelo in a rematch, right? I'm gonna tell you what I think. Because of the influx of money into boxing, Turki Alalshikh, when Turkey's in the house every day is Thanksgiving, payouts have just ballooned, all right? And I think Crawford deserves, if they're paying the kind of money, he should get it. Now, for the 2025 Canelo-Crawford fight, all the reports are saying that the total purses came up to around $200 million. I'm hearing 150 for Canelo, with supposedly $50 million for Crawford. It's somebody, I read somewhere, and it wasn't just a YouTuber saying this, somebody said it was like $75 million or something that Crawford got paid. Something kind of an under the table type arrangement. Now, you can't believe everything you hear, but I do believe Crawford got at minimum $50 million. But this is the thing, right? When you look at the guys Saudi has backed, like Fury, Usyk, those guys have earned really, really high paydays, over $100 million, okay? I think Usyk made, in the 2 fights with Fury alone, he made like $170 million. Fury, between the 2 fights alone, made over $200 million. Now, that's the scale of money in play out there in Saudi, okay? But when you're looking at the data that's available online, you kind of just got to take things with a grain of salt. But with heavy Saudi backing, boxing purses have reached levels where 6 or 7 figure deals for top fighters are increasingly, plausible, okay? Yet, even in this new paradigm, $100 million for an individual payday just seems, extreme. But it's happened. So my thing is, all right, Terence Crawford said to come back and fight, which it sounds like it's just for Canelo. He wants $100 million. But my thing is, let's just stick to the $100 million for Terence Crawford, right? What should justify a $100 million purse? Like, what's the criteria? So I try to throw something together. And to me, if a boxer wants a payday in the $100 million range, several high-stakes criteria should be met. Now, to justify that kind of money, I think, one, you have to be a massive global audience draw. Not just hardcore fans, but casuals worldwide. Is Crawford a global audience draw? Then the legitimacy. It has to have some titles, you have to have credibility, and you have to have legacy status. Undisputed or multi-division champions, major belts on the line. Crawford checks that box. High pay-per-view buys, gate revenue, sponsorship, broadcast deals. Money must come in from many revenue streams. I don't know if Crawford checks that box. Risk versus reward balance. The opponent must be credible to justify the risk. Crawford and Canelo, the rematch. I think the box is checked. Canelo is a credible opponent, and Canelo, if he and Crawford rematch, you better believe Canelo's going to leave it all inside training camp, and he's going to try this time to peak during fight night. And he's going to try to make the fight more difficult for Crawford because Canelo wants to win. I still think Crawford wins, but I do think that the opponent, Canelo, is very credible, even though Crawford beat him. And then crossover / popular appeal. Star power beyond boxing, media, celebrity status narrative. Crawford is getting there. Some may say he's there. He just chooses not to be out in those circles. And I respect that because Crawford's a family man. He's all about his kids, his family. He's not trying to go out there and get caught up in the BS. But crossover popular appeal, I think Crawford has enough of that to justify the $100 million. Then promotional marketing and backing. A promoter or backer willing to underwrite those guarantees like Turkey Saudi backing, which he has. So that box is checked. Then global timing and distribution. Broadcast rights, international audience, modern streaming platforms, or global deals that maximize exposure then Turki Alalshikh would make sure all that's taken care of. So out of these 7 things, the one issue that I'm not 100% sure on is if Crawford is a massive global audience draw. I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying I'm not sure. Not just hardcore fans, but casuals worldwide. Is Crawford that kind of draw? So when I look at the 7 things, Crawford pretty much qualifies. He pretty much qualifies. Now, the 100 million is going to be debatable. Everybody's going to sit here and say, you know what? It's possible, but does he really deserve it? Okay, because everyone's kind of in the middle. But when we try to evaluate Crawford against those criteria, what are the pros? What works in Crawford's favor? Okay, Crawford is an elite fighter, former undisputed champion in several weight divisions, currently undisputed at 168 pounds. He brings legacy. He brings skill. The Saudi-backed model is ready to back huge fights. If he fights a megastar like Canelo or someone with big drawing power, somehow produces a blockbuster upset like he's already done, the match could draw global interest and justify a higher payday, which is something I didn't think of initially. There would be a global audience. I was just thinking Crawford by himself, but if he fought Canelo, there no kidding would be a global audience watching that rematch. And then the streaming and everything, I think the fight would be bigger in the rematch than it was in the first fight. So there's a lot of pros for Terence Crawford going in to a negotiation for a $100 million payday. Now the cons, and this is where some people say, yo, it's unrealistic, is for 2025, Canelo Crawford, his guaranteed purse. Look, he made 50 to 75, but I keep seeing people saying he made 10 million. Let me tell you something. That's bullshit. Absolutely bullshit. He didn't make no goddamn 10 million. All right? But the bottom line is he didn't make 100. And 50 to 100, maybe you could see 75 for the next fight. But if he made 75, which is what I believe, getting to 100 shouldn't be a problem. I mean, he beat Canelo. You know what I'm saying? People are going to be watching that rematch to basically see Terence Crawford do what he did again in the first fight. No one's really, I'm not going to say no one, but most aren't going to be tuning in to see Canelo had a spectacular performance. No, they're going to be tuning in to see if Terence Crawford can do it again. That's all it boils down to. But outside of Canelo, we just got to be real. I don't think Crawford can get that 100 million unless Turkey just likes him and wants to hook him up. But I do think Crawford deserves 100 million and more. I do think that. But to reach 100 million, I just think the risk must translate into guarantee. But risk versus reward has to be backed by serious revenue forecasts. They got to have the guys there running the numbers, the little, what we used to call them, man? I forgot what we used to call them. But anyway, there's a term we used to use to refer to the guys who are the number crunchers. I forgot. But promoters will balk at that guarantee on paper. That's why if Turki Alalshikh does it, it's no problem. But even Turki Alalshikh is looking at fighters and what they're asking for and how much money he's paying them, and he's trying to restructure the way that he does business. So the bottom line is, does Crawford deserve the payday? Yeah. In a perfect world, Crawford would get the money against a perfect opponent like Canelo Alvarez. He'll get the global buzz, maximum revenue streams, and powerhouse promotion. You know, Crawford could deserve that $100 million. But as of right now, just what we know publicly, you know, that number was thrown out there by his buddy, Bernie the Boxer. But it's just pure speculation. I think for some people, the realistic purse is probably more around 75. Some people say 50, but I think like 75 million. But I mean, just give him the 100. But it's like, all right, you say just give him the 100. Well, what would it take? You know what I mean? What would be the conditions for Crawford to actually get $100 million? I think, again, it's got to be a megastar. If it's not going to be Canelo, he can't get it against no Janibek Alimkhanuly. He got to fight like a Benavidez. He got to fight like a Bivol, you know, a Beterbiev. Yeah, he got to fight like one of those guys. He can't be messing around at once. Yeah, he got to go up to 170. He's got to outdo what he did against Canelo as far as the challenge. It's got to be something greater. And again, there's got to be some belts on the line, legacy belts, era-defining type fight. That's what he has to do. Again, the massive global broadcast and streaming deals, which shouldn't be a problem with Turki Alalshikh and DAZN. There would have to definitely be a big gate, market reach, sold out stadium. Maybe they do it in the States. I don't know. It had to be some international ticket sales, strong merchandising, sponsorship deals. It would have to be a lot of stuff going on, especially that merchandising, man. There has to be a lot of that going on. And bottom line is Turki Alalshikh is the one who would have to put the money up. There's no promoter out there who's going to sit here and guarantee anything ahead of nothing, especially $100 million. So I think it requires a high promotion, and it has to be like a must-watch narrative. Like, that's what the fight would have to be. This is must-see TV. You can't miss it. That's what Canelo and Crawford was. Everybody was freaking out like, yo, I can't miss this fight. And it turned out to be a very, very good fight. But if he's going to get $100 million for somebody, it's got to be another one of those fights with that kind of narrative surrounding it. So if everything aligns, I think the $100 million is defensible. If even one of those pillars is weak, guaranteeing $100 million becomes financially suicide for Turki Alalshikh. Look, even Turki Alalshikh doesn't want to lose money. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as what fighters have been paid, look, with Canelo, got $150 million, but he's a top draw, has global fame, big marketing push. Other fighters like Usyk and Fury, rumored to have made, and the first fight Fury made over $100 million, and the second fight Usyk made over $100 million. But those guys, again, were big names. There was a lot on the line, big marketing push, and there was a whole lot of potential. And they were elite stars and marquee events. And Tyson Fury was the one really who was carrying that, because everybody knows Tyson Fury is recognized globally. But the bottom line is, when I start looking at Terence Crawford and Usyk, when you compare their profiles, who's recognized? Who's more recognizable? Crawford or Usyk globally? I don't know. Now, who's more recognized globally? Crawford or Tyson Fury? Tyson Fury. Crawford or Canelo? Canelo. All right, so I don't know. It's a tough one. But what I will say is the current pay scale under the Saudi-backed model is very, very generous. And Turki Alalshikh feels that all of his fighters deserve the money they receive. But for top-end payouts, I just can't see it going to fighters with unmatched. I can't see it going to fighters who can't match the drawing power of someone like a Canelo. I just can't see it. And as far as Crawford's guarantee, I think a realistic level of compensation is probably more around that, 50 to 75. But because of who he beat and how he beat him, and because of what Crawford has done throughout his whole career, if you're going to give Canelo $150 million, Crawford should get $100 million. $100 million, I know some people that say, nah, it requires extraordinary conditions beyond any normal fight for Crawford to get that kind of money. Okay, you're telling me the rematch with Canelo is not, it doesn't create extraordinary conditions? It creates, very extraordinary conditions. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents, man. So is Crawford being greedy, or is he being smart? Listen, man, I lean towards Crawford. Crawford is ambitious. He's not necessarily greedy, okay? In an era where money flows like water, thanks to the Saudi involvement, aiming high is part of the negotiation. Demanding big money is a bargaining position. Crawford openly talked about the whole day of negotiation he spent going back and forth with Turkey's people. Crawford said that shit wasn't fun. They weren't budging, he wasn't budging. So when Crawford comes out here and asks for $100 million, it's a power move. it's setting the stage for him to go back into negotiations, try to get what he wants. You know what I'm saying? But I just think if Crawford and his team believe the event can bring in extraordinary revenue, global distribution, sponsorships, hype, legacy value, then asking for that $100 million is fair, it's smart, and it's a power move. It signals that he values his legacy and their business leverage. And he just got to sit back and get ready to play hardball with Saudi's power broker, Turki Alalshikh. But when I strip the emotion away and I try to be realistic, right? I just think all the right pieces have to align in order for Crawford to get that demand. And it could just be more about posturing than getting the guarantee. Is just posturing for a big payday than trying to get the $100 million. But that, again, I'm going to come back to that massive global exposure, perfect opponent, intense promotion. And, the fans want to see it. I haven't heard that much talk about. Can't wait to see the next Crawford Canelo fight, and all these things are going to play into whether Crawford gets the big money deal. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans on 7 continents. They should pay Crawford that money, man. I think give him the $100 million and let him keep the party going. Yo, I'm in the breeze.